Good afternoon, welcome along to this workshop, which is a pre-draft workshop for Council's play strategy. Just recognising that we've received apologies from Councillor Pottinger, Councillor Stewart, Councillor Boyle, and possibly one for lateness from Councillor Broad. We also have Mayor Clark and Councillor Bond zooming into the meeting. We will leave formal questions until the end, but there is some interactivity that's required throughout the presentation from Damien, so restrict answers to questions at that point, or the specific questions that are being asked, and we'll save general ones for the end, so if you can make a note of them. And what was the other thing I needed to recognise? That'll do at the moment. Acknowledging Tammy, welcome along from Bluff Community Board. And so Caroline and Damien, over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for prioritising your time to come along to the play strategy workshop. We've been in the pre-draft community engagement stage since the 22nd of June, and we really wanted to hear from councillors. So the specialist in this area is obviously Damien. I'm here in a supporting capacity only, and I will now hand over.
Thanks, Caroline. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for your time today. Valuing your experience and excited to delve a little bit deeper into the topic with you today and capture some insights. Before we jump into the interactive work, though, it's worth doing a little bit of scene setting. I want to talk to you a little bit about the question of why play and why now. And so play is a fundamental human right for children and recognised by the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that NZ is a state party to. And so it's a collective responsibility to continue to find ways to ensure that that right is protected. Play is essential for children's physical, cognitive and social development, as it's ultimately the key learning mechanism for the human species. And so we need to continue to elevate the mana of play and give it the recognition it deserves. And this will come up several times, but whilst children are at the peak of that priority, this is not exclusive to children in terms of the outcome of this strategy. Play isn't just beneficial, but it's fundamental to well-being across the lifespan. It's our role to provide high-quality play opportunities as play helps to meet all four local government well-beings. And I can imagine that we all know, or can at least make educated guesses in terms of how that work supports social, cultural, and even environmental well-being. So I'll just briefly mention, in terms of economic well-being, that Sport New Zealand's independent research commissioned by Sport NZ in 2022 has shown that the social return on physical activity investment in New Zealand, whether that's play, recreation, or sport, is more than double the input cost. Unfortunately, today's kids are having fewer opportunities for high-quality play experiences, and that is in part due to our urban planning and policy. Children's ability to be independent is challenged by how we design and build our cities, which means we're also in a position to find ways to help address those concerns. For instance, over time, play has been progressively restricted to playgrounds, but in reality should permeate across all of our public open spaces. And finally, children's activities are increasingly organised by adults, but we need to create spaces that encourage independent free play and prioritise children's needs over pure adult convenience. And I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir, but at the very least, children are our city's future ratepayers, our future voters and leaders, and investing in their present sets them up and us for a productive future, which is why cities invest in children at all, and why this work is important, and finding ways to how we actually can deliver play in creative and clever ways to meet those outcomes. But given that I think I can say that most of us are not children anymore, then it's going to be important for us to reconnect a little bit with our younger selves. And as I said, this is not purely only about children, but children often lack a voice in this space, and so they are the main priority. And so for the next 5 minutes, my challenge and invitation to you is to reach forward and take one of your pots of Play-Doh. And your challenge for the next 5 minutes is to think about and then recreate one of your favourite childhood play memories using the material provided. If you're online, you're welcome. If you don't have Play-Doh at hand, and you may not, and that's okay, you're welcome to just sit and reflect or find something to draw on instead. And then once we're finished, there'll be opportunity for one or two people to share their memory if they'd like to, before we start then digging into the meat of the material.
Alan doesn't do play.
Do Play-Doh. Not here in a meeting.
No, it could be any.
Oh no!
Have you lost your marble?
Well, I didn't well before the Play-Doh was open.
Do you feel deprived? Yeah, something. Favourite child memory? Game.
And I'll give you 2 more minutes to finish your masterpiece. These will be exhibited in Hawakatuya. No, I'm kidding.
I hope I bought my time this year.
– 30 seconds.
Setting us up to fun.
Just. I'll take one.
He's built up that form. It's very sophisticated.
Sedentary. Sedentary.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry.
Chair, I'm happy to invite you to share or otherwise
Great way
delegate.
to start your performance review, Damien. This is a bike, which was my key to freedom as a young person. They were for play, they were for transport. This was the one I never had. It was cool. It's got a banana seat and 8 hangers. Tammy, you're looking like you're not remembering
The old banana.
the great chopper.
Yeah. Do you have the gear in the middle of the?
No, shit, I had a 1934 Healing Bone Shaker. I just settled for a Rally 20, but a bike to me as a kid was really important, and of course they play a huge part in our community now for grown-ups.
Open to the floor if there's anyone else who wants to share.
So I've got this little guy kicking what looks like a football, but it's not. It's actually a can. And we had a game, and I don't know if you had it in New Zealand, called Kick the Can.
Yeah.
You've kicked the can, so I don't need to describe it then. And we used to love that because it cost you nothing. All you needed to do was get an empty can, and that was you. Out in the morning, come back at night for your dinner, spent the rest of the day playing Kick the Can.
This may not look much like it, but it's a set of knuckle bones, which was a very popular game when I was at primary school, and we spent a lot of time on knuckle bones and had our own sets of them that you blessed before you played and all that sort of thing. So, not not sure that anatomy-wise I have quite got it, but that's what they are.
And it's funny because I was thinking, do I do knuckle bones or do my other favourite thing, which is a bit more physical, and that was hopscotch. So I've got hopscotch.
I was going to do that.
So we grew up more or less in the same place
more or
at the
less
same time.
Quick fire around the room, there you go.
I want to know, is that thing, is it Grant's
Yeah,
mate?
come on.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a tree up in the bush. We used to swing on the vines in the bush
Yeah, nice.
across a big ravine and go up there for airs and just have great fun.
Just a wee boat. I used to love spending time at the boatyard, the local engineers workshop with my dad, or down the boat. I don't know if I loved it as much as I thought, but I grew to love it. I normally had a paintbrush or something in hand, which comes with the job. But yeah, boats.
It's a great night. I've done 7 hay bales. Once a year we'd get a hay made on the farm and we'd put it into the implement shed. So that was a whole process of helping to make the hay. But I was youngest of four kids, and would make, pretty dangerous really when you think about it, but we'd make mazes and forts inside the hay stacks. So yeah, we used to love it. And it would be dark, so you'd kind of put big drops, set your siblings up, and they'd fall in.
This is a very cursed Riverton sound shower
Oh,
at the beach. Yeah, I used to love going down there because my grandparents lived there and running around playing at the beach with my little sister.
Oh, well, because I was really time limited based on my playing with it in the first place, I made a pumpkin patch baby. Because that was the time I think my daughter was playing with Play-Doh, and those were the memories for me.
And Alan didn't.
Councillor Bond or Mayor Clark, if you had a reflection, you're welcome to share.
We've got sound.
Did you do a picture, Rhea?
I don't know if you can see it, but the first one
Pull
is
it back a little bit.
Hold it back.
dart,
Oh,
kiss and catch,
I can
and
see
bull
you
rush.
said lips. Was that kiss and tell?
Kiss and catch.
Okay. Close second.
I became a really good sprinter.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for indulging me in that little play activity. Whilst it's fun to do something tactile, while we think those play memories, and I imagine you could have thought of other ones as well, stick with us for a long time, and they're hugely important to our upbringing and our experiences and things that are important. Often family, friends, independence, often a lack of adults in those things. But we can often remember smells and sounds and temperatures and all these things. And whilst we don't have time to go into all of the constraints and things that are now impacting on children's play experiences, as we start thinking about greater urbanisation, for instance, compared to a lot of our rural roots, many of those play opportunities don't exist in the same way that they used to. And so how do we find ways to not necessarily recreate exactly your experiences, but find ways to ensure that all children continue to have meaningful play experiences as they explore their cities? And so this play strategy, first off, it's important to recognise that this will update and replace the 2014 playground strategy. And so as a result, while it will absolutely include playgrounds within its scope, it expands beyond them to encompass play across a wider spectrum of Invercargill and Bluff. So that's both thinking about the physical space in which play can or does occur, but also recognising the many existing contributions to a playful city, including within council's own spaces and places, areas of the library, Splash Playhouse, for instance, investment into the stadium, but also the way that schools and other providers through events and programming create playful opportunities across the entire city. However, formal court and field sports have not been thought of as being a priority within this play strategy, as they fall under the regional spaces and places strategy, of which ICC subscribes to. Play here is being defined as informal, spontaneous, self-chosen, self-directed, intrinsically motivated, creative, and personally structured, or in other words, the things that we do purely for fun. And so when we say play, that's what we're talking about in terms of, say, formalised sport and competitive physical activity experiences. The strategy will establish a vision for a citywide approach to play and outline the necessary outcomes and steps to achieve it. After adoption, an implementation plan and possibly a change management plan would be developed to detail the actions and if there were any necessary modifications needed to reach the strategic outcomes. In terms of development process to date, we've been conducting literature review on the benefits and the importance, the value of play, and the way play has changed over time for different cities and nations. Analyse global and national play research, investigating a new risk management standard that's been developed specifically for physical activity, including play. We've been holding one-on-one stakeholder meetings to understand what the current status quo for play, delivery, spaces, venues, preferences, etc. are across the city. Additionally, I've also been gathering thoughts from within council. I have a play team of about 20 to 24 staff who we feed in back and forth in terms of their specific expertise and learning about play to understand what that looks like from a council perspective. And then the public engagement, which has benefited from coinciding alongside the hugely successful Hawakatuia Play exhibition, this being its 3rd year, as well as additional workshops with the Scouts, with the Ruru School, the Youth Council, the key council stakeholders I mentioned before, as well as from children and caregivers at KidZone. So we're now ending the end of that formal pre-draft engagement period, which is August 10th. And we'll share the emerging themes after our own discussion, just to avoid specifically directing you into the same themes and topics that we've received to date. So we've got 3 engagement questions that we would love your input on. These are here on the screen. And so these are the same questions that we've been asking everybody at this stage, whether they're public, whether they're the stakeholders, or whether it's within our specific workshops. Wanting to know, what do you love about the current play opportunities in Invercargill and Bluff? What play opportunities do you wish for Invercargill and Bluff? And what wonderings about play or our approach to it as a city do you have that might help us reach a more play-filled future? So we only have about 15 minutes for this process, but I'm going to invite a couple of my colleagues to come up and be at a couple of tables here. And so I invite you to come up and have conversation, record your ideas. Over here we have I love, here we have I wish, and I'm sitting at I wonder.
So during that, we will pause the live stream just to allow the discussion to take place, and it's away from the microphones anyway. But our people on the stream will hear our feedback when it comes back at 25 to 3. So we'll pause the live stream, which will gives us a chance to sort out a sound. Right, welcome back to the workshop. We've all been going around casting memories and aspirations for things that we would like to see with play, and an opportunity now to feed back some of those responses.
I've got the I wonder questions here that I'm happy to kick off. I'll lead with the question, wondering whose responsibility play is. And so we've talked about sort of the intersection between the work that council does, the things that parents do, the things that various providers do, and that has brought up other questions in terms of how we better, wondering how council might relate better, if necessary, with different of those providers, groups like SAT, or groups that might be more informal than the formal sport relationships and organisations that we're used to dealing with, and how we might enable them to be using spaces. How might the spaces that we're used to be used in more non-traditional ways to enable better activation? Thinking about distributed versus destination play sites in order to sort of capitalise on the wellbeing benefits that tend to come from social connection rather than more separated opportunities, as well as the innovation and things that might be necessary to deliver some of those things, which includes improving accessibility for different populations, youth voice, and the like, and how things have changed over time, and what then is the necessary response because of that. I don't have the I love or I wish.
You're on camera.
I have got the I love.
You might need a microphone.
Sit here.
Cool. In terms of the I loves, our parks, the walks, our access to green space, like the beach, various providers like South Alive, specific locations like Elizabeth Park or Sandy Point, or spaces in Bluff, specific equipment types and things like Flying Fox, and having forts being able to have some height and experience some risk, loving the water play opportunities and things that Queen's Park provides, as well as our pocket spaces. And then wishing for safer spaces, spaces that allow connection, where parents can feel comfortable, kids can experience those spaces unsupervised. Play in the central city, type of larger play space than the things that are seen in other cities. Play activations and things that are sort of pop up and get people moving around and exploring other parts of the city. A greater creative expression in the play spaces and infrastructure that we provide. And more things that excite greater populations, so adults, for instance, in terms of what their play needs might be. So thank you very, very much for feeding that content in. That's going to go straight into all of the data that we've been collecting to date. And then I'm happy to share with you what the emerging themes are from the broader engagement that's happened to date. So far and away, Queen's Park is the jewel in the crown, the most frequently mentioned and praised location. Lots of love for a variety of features, including the playground, water play area, natural areas, and activities for all ages. Having access to indoor facilities, respondents definitely value those spaces, like the library, Splash Palace, ILT Stadium and Hawakituia. The quantity of play spaces, there's definitely a love for having ready access to neighbourhood spaces, particularly parks, playgrounds, but also all of the natural reserves. and those spaces and activities that are free, which increases their accessibility, and lots of comments around how those make it easier for families to engage and utilise the city. In terms of what has come through for I Wish, a strong desire for more indoor options given Invercargill's climate. A lot of comments mentioning whether spaces could be covered or there are indoor activities, or even whether that weather actually activates play opportunities that could be designed that suit wind and rain and cold. More modern and diverse playground equipment. Many people expressing a wish for updated opportunities in that space, frequent references to destination playgrounds, as well as requests for more challenging equipment, nature-based play areas, and inclusive designs for children of all abilities. And there's significant interest in having more play opportunities in the city centre, and that's included suggestions around more pedestrianised areas, more play within our street designs, and play spaces near or in the mall. Inclusive and accessible play, many comments highlighting the need for play spaces to cater to all ages and abilities, and that's included both accessible equipment for children with disabilities, play areas suitable for different age groups, including teens and adults, and culturally diverse play spaces. And then in terms of people's wonderings around what might be possible or changes that could be made, comments emphasising the importance of listening to the community, especially youth and families, when designing these play spaces or redesigning anything. There's a desire for more collaborative planning and decision making with the community and between organisations. A focus on creating spaces that cater to all ages, not just 5 to 12-year-olds, and how might that be possible to support intergenerational connection. Some of the specific needs in that space highlighted things like fenced spaces for 0s to 5s, appropriate playful risk-taking for youth, and making adult interests like artworks interactive. Natural and creative play, comments highlighting the desire for nature-based play opportunities that use natural and loose materials to enable more open-ended and self-directed play, and that will change from visit to visit. And then finally, a desire for better communication and promotion about what play opportunities exist and how that communication exists across the different facilitators, venue operators, providers and things, and whether that might consider targeting specific user groups who may not use our traditional forms of communication. So a lot of, definitely a number of synergies between the public commentary and the commentary that's come through today from yourself. The next project targets, as I mentioned, August 10th is the end of our pre-draft engagement. August 29th, we're intending to have completed the analysis of the engagement, and then by September 26th, returning a first draft of the developed first draft copy. So that's the end of my content, and happy to take questions.
Pania.
I just want to jump back a moment. Firstly, yes, Queen's Park will be the jewel of the crown. But for Bluff, I think we're really limited. So literally we have one playground on the main street which is small but is reasonably well used, which has standard equipment. We have Alwell Park as well as Gore Street West that has very little play equipment whatsoever and under-resourced in any way, which would be really helpful to have some sort of interactive play equipment or even have equipment. But also none of these areas have shelter, so there's no sheltered type.
So Pania, the reference to Queen's Park came up in feedback from other people.
Oh, I gathered that. I just want to add in Bluff because it said Invercargill and Bluff. Thank you.
Rhea.
Thank you, Damien. I think it's, gone the days when I was growing up and I was told back by dark. I wanted to, from your emerging themes, ask a few questions, because we know that our population growth in the future will bring more tamariki and rangatahi into access for our play areas. We know that our infrastructure for our play spaces needs to change for future generation use, but out of your emerging themes, with the likes of Queen's Park, obviously being a top contender, and the I Wish areas, I'm interested in the participation of the ages that wanted to see more spaces for playing in the mall. and in the city centre, were those from adults or were they taken from younger generations?
It's a little bit of a mix. So certainly there are parents who have spoken about their going in and spending time or money in the central city has been enabled by the pop-up play space within Invercargill Central. And so a desire for more of that opportunity. But there has been youth voice or children talking about wanting to have opportunities to play in there, I guess because when their parents drag them along to go in there, there isn't anything that they feel that sort of speaks to them. But then also that point around the, I guess, interactive artworks and how actually, how do we bleed, I guess, different needs and different purposes for going into the central city, and how are those needs potentially all met in a single visit, rather than needing to move to other spaces. So,
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? Chance for one last question, perhaps. Reverend Cook.
So we've talked about it briefly when I was talking to Dr. Hiddle before. I think the thing for me is that the conflict between those who just want to do things that are self-directed and self-motivated, and then the constant reference to destination things like Margaret Mahi Park and all those, which are so expensive and so unaffordable at how we are at the moment. How do we wean people off the obsession with really heavily curated and highly developed experiences, novelty type experiences, and think that that is the ultimate that the city should have, instead of encouraging them to celebrate all the opportunities that are there, many of which are free. You know, so most of us who are a little bit more mature spoke of things that were really relatively expensive, you know, part of your Christmas package, the knuckle bones or whatever, or in every school playground in the case of hopscotch, or those sorts of things. How do we redirect people to those kinds of things which we can encourage and support and which communities can afford?
I think that's the opportunity that the play strategy provides to dig into some of that content. And a lot of the public commentary has been about physical assets rather than some of the stuff that you're talking about in terms of actually how do we think about these things differently, how do we communicate them differently, and as I said, I think that's what the play strategy enables us to consider, because as you say, in terms of the expense, there has been commentary about wouldn't it be great if we had Invercargill's ice rink back. That certainly predates my time in Invercargill, and that would be a huge, you know, extravagance, and so it may be less about that exact physical experience, but how do we find ways to recreate the importance of the play memories that we discussed through other means, and what that then actually looks like.
And just one final question, because we have to wind up so we can get infrastructure underway. Grant.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifying questions. How many responses did you get from the survey?
So we've had about 300 pieces of commentary to date.
Yeah. And then you mentioned you've got 24 staff.
So I have 24 play champions, effectively.
In the city?
Within the city council. So they receive play professional development from myself, and then because they are the experts in either project management or engineering or planning, etc., then they're the ones who can identify how does play relate into those areas of work.
And so all of those people sit within one department, or are they across?
Across multiple departments.
Okay. With reference to the inner city, have we provided that feedback to ICL around the fact that you're getting feedback that people want something to do in the new mall? Because surely that's a commercial need or opportunity. If they can satisfy that need, more people will come and it generates more people through it. So I would have said that's for them to satisfy. Second thing, I wonder, you talked at the very beginning around, you know, human rights and kids' access to play, equally, what's a kid's right to parenting, and to have someone who takes care of them and provides opportunity like play?
Good rhetorical question, but not necessarily play. Understand the value proposition of it though, because good parenting encourages good play. Councillors, we do have the Infrastructure and Projects Committee meeting to get underway very shortly. Thank you to Councillor Bond and Mayor Clark for joining us on Zoom. Thanks, Damien, for taking us through that process. Hope you found that useful and fed into what you'll be bringing to us after September 26th.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. That concludes the workshop.